Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to be starting a new series on cutting boards. So we're going all the way from basic to luxury boards. So if you want to see how to make one of your own or follow the series, go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss any of that new content. Today we're going to do this basic walnut cutting board start to finish. So if you want to learn how to make one yourself, stick around. Alright, welcome back, everybody. So the first step to creating your cutting board is selecting some lumber. I happen to have some of this 8/4 walnut on hand, but if you don't have a jointer or planer, you're going to want to make sure that you get something that's already surfaced 4 sides, S4S. Otherwise, you're going to have a heck of a time getting it flat, and your glue up probably will not go very well. So we start off by cutting a few chunks of that 8/4 walnut into rough lengths.
We're missing a chunk of the footage.
He's an idiot. He's always been an idiot.
Here we're moving on to planing the boards. You will notice I am missing some footage. I didn't hit record like an idiot. But you would want to joint the wide face of one side and then the short face of the next side to make them parallel to each other before moving on to planing. I will show that in another video. I apologize.
Figure it out.
Now that I've figured out how to get a board to go through my planer, I can move on to finishing the other board and getting both boards down to the same thickness. This usually takes a few passes to kind of get them flat and then get them both to a ideal thickness for the cutting board planks. After you get them all jointed and planed, then you can adjust your table saw and start by putting your jointed short side of your boards against the fence. Set your fence to the width you want your board slats, and then just run the boards all the way through. Get all your slats made.
It's stuck!
Oh, never mind.
And I'll tell you what, there's just no other feeling better than getting your hardwood stuck in a tight hole. Sometimes you just gotta work it through, go nice and slow, but it'll go through, trust me.
Stuck.
Here I did get my nice thick hardwood stuck again. Sometimes the only thing you can do is pull her back out, flip her around, and try again. But in all seriousness, if you put a board through your table saw and it gets stuck from the tension, you can turn the table saw off, pull it back out, flip it over, and then normally, depending on how long your board is, you can potentially get it to go through upside down, and you don't lose any material. You don't waste that cut with saw marks and stuff on it. So it's still perfectly usable. Now we can move on to organizing our slats in the orientation that we want. With a solid walnut cutting board, it doesn't matter too much because it's all walnut. But if you were going to do some other variations of wood in there, you would definitely play around with that for a few minutes to get the most ideal look for your board. We'll cover that on the next video. So here I'm just getting the clamps ready. So that when I get the glue applied, I can quickly get them clamped up be generous with your glue here.
Rub it.
You can never have too much glue. You can always have too little glue. If you put too little glue on there, you'll end up with boards that start separating, or you'll have cracks at the ends of your boards, and they just won't last very long. So now all we got to do is turn them down, put them together, and clamp them up. You should see glue lines at every joint. That means you got a good fit. You'll see me put some clamps on top. That's to oppose the pressure from the bottom clamps so that the board will stay flat during drying. There's some other methods to do this, but this is the quickest way in my opinion. And now we wait. And wait a little more. And we're still waiting. And oh,
3 hours later.
sorry about that. Anyways, so next we're moving on to figuring out our final dimensions of the board. Remember when we were cutting everything down, we did kind of rough sizes. So now what I did was I took the measurement, split it in half. That way we didn't have a long board on one end and a short board on the other. After you get it cut to its final length, we can run that through the planer once more to clean up the glue lines. Make it nice and smooth, flat. And here I'm using my table saw sled to kind of cut these down to length. You will notice that on this end I did end up cutting it twice. I did not get enough pressure on the end of my board and ended up with a couple of cracks, so I cut it down just a little bit more. And finally, on this particular board we're going to do a 45-degree chamfer for the handhold. So we do that on one side, get it the way we want, then we can flip the board to the other side and do that one. And then all we have to do is adjust the table saw fence so that the blade meets up with that first side we cut, and cut the other two. Now normally that's where I would leave that for a basic board, but we're going to come back and do that all over again on the underside because I did have a little void in the wood that I did not like, and for cutting boards I don't like to have epoxy on the top surface, just because epoxy it is definitely okay for like prepared food, but raw foods and stuff you're not supposed to have in contact with epoxy. So I did go ahead and recut the bevels on the underside, and it just kind of give it a different look here, but I think it still looks okay. Now we sand for 12 hours, what seemed like. I do use the pencil trick here. So if you draw a pencil line on all your surfaces, you will know when you have sanded evenly all the surfaces. If the pencil line disappears in one area and not the other, you've sanded enough in the area where the pencil line is gone and not enough in the other. Between the next to last and last sanding, I do wet it all down like you've seen there before to raise the grain, and that just prevents the fuzzy feeling of boards when you get them wet the first time after they've been made. So you kind of pre-wet them down, make them fuzzy, and then you can sand that back off. I do use 3 grits usually. The planer gets it good enough to where I can start at 120. I will then move to 180, and then the final sand is 220. One of the most satisfying parts of woodworking is the oiling of your hardwood. There's just nothing like it. You will notice there towards the top there is a little black spot. That is that void I was speaking about earlier. I off camera, fill that with a little bit of black epoxy. After about 15 minutes of soaking, I do come back and wipe off all the excess oil, and then we'll follow it up with a coat of board wax. I do make my own out of mineral oil and beeswax, but you can use any store-bought oil or wax that would work. And there you go. Kablamo! A cutting board. Not the most fancy or unique piece of kitchenware, but it's a good starting point to get into the game. Come back for part 2 next time, where we're going to incorporate some new design, exotic woods, and I'll show you how to make an easy jig for installing anti-slip feet. So we'll catch you on the next one.